Q&A night. We have one or two questions left from the retreat, and we also have a new one, so we'll try to answer them. Dear Ajahn, if we want to practice the 8 precepts at home, when is the recommended time? Is it full moon day? And are we allowed to do house chores, grocery shopping and study? Thank you. Traditionally, yes, the 8 precepts, people often would keep them on the new moon day and full moon day, what we call the Uposatha days. But then also on the half moon day, which is after 8 days after the full moon or the new moon, 7 or 8 days. So every month there's 4 moon days, and traditionally those are the days people might determine to keep the 8 precepts. But that tradition grew up particularly in a sort of farming agrarian community in Asia, where the rhythms of life and the routines of life are slightly different. Now most people live in urban areas, city areas, and they have very least they're working 5 days a week, and many people have to work on weekends as well. But generally people have 1 or 2 days off a week, so that might become your substitute moon day perhaps, because keeping 8 precepts requires quite a bit of discipline, commitment. So you only eat before midday, you don't indulge in entertainments, don't dress up, decorate yourself, put makeup and jewelry on and so on. Sleep on a simple bed and practice celibacy. So an ordinary work day, it's possible to keep the 8 precepts, so some people are very strict and do them on the moon days, because there's a certain energy one gets, that resonance. This is the moon day, the holy day. Maybe one thinks of other people, of Sangha and lay people around the world who are keeping the 8 precepts and practicing on those days. Or you may even attend a monastery on those days, and that gives you the energy to keep the 8 precepts, even if you have to go to work. But perhaps another practical way is to pick a rest day, like a holiday or weekend, when you can really devote your time more to the 8 precepts. When you keep the 8 precepts, you try to minimize other activities. So certainly entertainments, unnecessary kind of household duties, social events, things like that, you try to minimize or avoid. So you can devote all your time to meditation, study, practice of mindfulness. But to do some mindful chores around the home, say, that are not too distracting, well, it's possible. It wouldn't necessarily be breaking the precepts. But the danger is you start to look for things to do because you'd rather do things than sitting or walking meditation or listening to Dhamma. So that's where you have to be quite disciplined with yourself and clear in your own commitment. So some chores, like in a monastery, every day people keep the 8 precepts if they're lay people staying in the monastery. There may be certain chores in the kitchen, the grounds, maintenance, whatever. So it's not impossible to keep the 8 precepts and do these activities. But just observe your mind that's maybe seeking distraction in more external activities. So even shopping, if you really have to, because it's your 1 day off a week and you want to keep the precepts, but you need to go shopping, well, if you're careful, maybe you can go shopping. But see it very much as just as a chore, a duty, something that is necessary for you or your family, and be aware of the dangers, because when you go shopping you're obviously exposed to all these sights and sounds and images and sense contact with things that are not related to what you need to buy. Maybe you're just going to buy food and essential items, but then you see shops with other things in them, so that can be quite stimulating and distracting to your practice. So I would recommend, if you can avoid shopping, avoid it. So you try and find a balance where you're not indulging in these other activities, so that you can really put your effort into practicing mindfulness. So best of all would be go to the monastery or Buddhist center or meditation center on a day that you keep the 8 precepts. But if that's not possible and you're disciplined, you can do it at home. And you may have to tell everyone else what you're doing, so they don't invite you out to other social events or expect you to be doing other more worldly things. You keep your discipline, you tell everyone so they can let you get on with it perhaps. You have your quiet space, whether you've got your whole home or just one room in your home to help. You may move out of your normal bedroom or move onto the floor, like put a mat on the floor or a simple mattress on the floor, so you're out of your bed. If you're married or in a relationship, you certainly shouldn't be staying in the same place with your partner on that day. You separate from them to avoid the chance of falling into sexual contact and sexual activity, because you're keeping celibate. So there's a whole range of things you have to be disciplined about when you keep the 8 precepts. So then you have to plan it and say, well, which day is the best day for me? It could be a moon day or it could be a holiday. People who've done it often and are used to it and experienced with it, well, maybe they can do more when they're keeping the 8 precepts. So some people even go to work or cook for their family in the evening when they themselves don't eat. But there is a danger with all these activities that the mind can slip into old ways of thinking. So I would minimize any unnecessary activities on the day you keep 8 precepts. But the benefits are there when you keep the 8 precepts. You have more time for meditation, you simplify your day, you have that sense of being disciplined, practicing mindfulness. And I'd recommend making your plan, have a routine that you plan, how many hours of sitting and walking meditation you do, maybe periods of chanting, periods of listening to Dhamma, and you plan your time, plan your day, so that you don't get too distracted or lost. Dear Ajahn, from the sign of teaching from Luang Por Chah, we don't really understand what it means to practice Dhamma. We tend to think that Dhamma practice means sitting meditation, walking meditation, and listening to Dhamma talks. Well, that's true, but those things are only the external shell of the practice. Would you please add or clarify the internal, or what they are? What are the core practices? What is the core of the practice, or anything else with respect? Well, that's a translation, as you point out, from Ajahn Chah, that you only can begin with the external, the shell of the practice. So we undertake precepts, 5 precepts, 8 preceps. We receive instructions on how to meditate, and meditation techniques such as Anapanasati. We listen to Dhamma talks, explanations of the Dhamma. And that's how it starts, isn't it, the practice? You undertake precepts, learn meditation techniques, listen to the teachings, But that's not yet seeing or knowing the Dhamma for yourself. These are the externals which provide the means by which you can turn your attention inwards to actually see the mind, become more mindful of body and mind, or the 5 khandhas, from moment to moment, which is your aim, so that you can really penetrate the Four Noble Truths. But you begin with the externals. You know, like we keep precepts. In the beginning you might even take precepts with a monk or a nun. You sit there and you recite the precepts and you begin like that. But once you know the precepts and you know your mind better and you know the intentions coming up in your mind, you don't necessarily have to recite the precepts or take them with someone, but you're using them as guidelines to recognize unskillful states of mind, unskillful intentions that may lead you to break the precepts. So you start to internalize the precepts. Or the meditation techniques we use to develop mindfulness, sitting and walking meditation. You take that technique and you use it, but the aim is to develop the quality of mindfulness from moment to moment, knowing your own body and mind from moment to moment. That's the core or the heart of it. That's what your aim is to know your body and mind. And there's many techniques we can use for that. There's not just one, because sometimes people attach so much to the externals, to the precepts, the meditation technique, some Dhamma teaching or reflection that they've heard. That becomes an end in itself, and they just stick to that rigidly, but they're not really going any deeper and watching their mind or getting to know their own mind, and particularly they're not seeing mental defilements arise yet, greed, anger and delusion, because they haven't internalized the practice, brought up the mindfulness. So for example, a very common experience is people say, I'm going to sit meditation for 1 hour. And that's a good thing, generally speaking, but their body sits there for an hour and their mind maybe is not mindful at all. They spend that whole hour falling asleep. The mind is wandering around, daydreaming perhaps, thinking about things, planning things. So the physical form, the body is there, and that 1 hour period they've given the title, I am meditating for 1 hour. But the actual qualities of meditation are not really being developed, perhaps. We call it just perfunctory meditation, or just sitting there but not really developing mindfulness or clarity or any insight yet. It's just fulfilling a kind of a role, saying I'm sitting, or walking meditation, someone's walking back and forth for half an hour. So it looks to another person that they're meditating, but maybe they're just fantasizing, planning all kinds of things, thinking all kinds of things, not really cultivating mindfulness yet. So what we have to do is use the externals as starting point, but then use them to develop deeper mindfulness, more continuous mindfulness, and then start turning our attention with this state of mindfulness we're developing to observe body and mind as they are, to observe thoughts, see them as impermanent, unsatisfactory, not self, contemplate the body, see that as impermanent, unsatisfactory, not self, to be mindful of feelings, pleasant, neutral, unpleasant, arising, passing away, and so on. True insight into the Dhamma, into the Four Noble Truths, into suffering, its causes, and how to abandon the cause of suffering, that has to come through diligent, patient effort to establish mindfulness, turn awareness onto the nature of this body and mind, and see what's going on, see the processes at work, really see them. So that's when it becomes internal. So, say somebody who's practiced a lot and is well developed, they develop this sort of what we call almost automatic mindfulness and insight, mindfulness and wisdom. It's just there all the time, whatever the posture, whatever the activity, whatever the time of day. The precepts are just automatically, they're keeping them, automatically they're turning their mind to be mindful of the body, feelings, mind objects. There's a certain ease and continuity and this sort of automatic way of doing it because of the practice they've done. But in the beginning we have to work with our mind, and that's why the externals are useful. We need precepts, we need periods of sitting, walking, meditation to train ourselves. We need to use the techniques to develop mindfulness. We need to develop techniques of insight, vipassana. So there's nothing wrong necessarily with using techniques and practices and precepts and rules of discipline, but the aim is to bring awareness inside and to be aware of the mind itself or awareness itself and know the Dhamma on the inside. So that you get to the point, this sense of automatic mindfulness and wisdom, Ajahn Chah says, it's like, that everything becomes a teaching then. Whatever's happening in one's experience, one is seeing the Dhamma in it. So say an intention to break a precept comes up, an unwholesome, unskillful intention arises. One sees it because of the mindfulness is there, and one knows this is unwholesome, this is to be abandoned. It's not just reciting the precepts, but it's knowing them as an experience, whether the mind is keeping the precepts or the intention to not keep them is coming up. One is knowing greed, anger and delusion as they arise. One is seeing them as impermanent, suffering, not self. One is letting them go through clear knowledge and vision. One is seeing the body as impermanent, not self, seeing feelings as impermanent, not self. So everything becomes a teaching of Dhamma, every experience. Whereas in the beginning we have to work at it, and half the time the mind is nowhere there, nowhere near the Dhamma. It's off thinking again, or falling asleep, or caught in a mood, some kind of emotional state that just prevents us from seeing having any clarity in our experience. This is why we practice a lot. We go on retreats, we stay in monasteries, we ordain sometimes, if you can. The more time and effort you can put to the practice, the deeper you'll go, and then you're seeing the Dhamma on the inside. But it doesn't mean to say you give up the practices, like, there's no allowance in Buddhism for enlightened beings, say, and as far as monastics go, to drop their rules of training. So monks, nuns, they keep their rules of training even if they become an arahant, reach nibbana, they still follow the same rules as somebody who's just a beginner. They may no longer really need the rules because their mind has changed, because it's seen the truth, but they still keep them out of respect for the Buddha, the Vinaya, for the benefit of others, for the benefit of future generations. And they also might meditate. So like even the Buddha would meditate. You can say, well, the Buddha doesn't need to meditate anymore. He doesn't need to practice anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing. But enlightened beings still meditate sometimes. It's like we call it vihara dhamma. It's just their dwelling place of the mind. So they might do a bit of mindfulness of breathing. Is just a skillful occupation. They have some free time. They might just spend that time meditating on a theme. Could be radiating loving kindness, could be following the breath, could be using their power of samadhi to develop certain insights into how to teach and help other people. But they all still do sitting, walking meditation. It's not like you reach enlightenment and then everything stops. It's just you no longer need those techniques to train the mind. The mind is already with the Dhamma all the time. But as skillful exercises, skillful behavior, they may still meditate or walk meditation. Luang Por Khao used to walk meditation 3 times a day, even after he was enlightened. He had a walking path for the morning, one for the afternoon, one for the evening. So some teachers, they've already become enlightened, they'll still carry on keeping up some of their practices. Chao Kun No used to sit meditation all night, even after he's enlightened, they say. Luang Por Man used to chant suttas for hours. So he's already enlightened, but he still does chanting. You know, some people, they're just beginning their practice, they say, oh, I don't like chanting. They have a reaction. Maybe that's a defilement. You know, they'll have to work that out for themselves. But enlightened beings still do chanting. They're reflecting and using those suttas just to recite the suttas and enjoy the Dhamma. It's like a wholesome activity for the enlightened mind. Cultivating samadhi, reciting suttas. So the externals are not like things that one is just waiting to discard. One might keep them up, even enlightened beings keep up these things, but they no longer depend on them to train the mind. The mind is already well trained. Another question. If someone's behavior and speech always stimulates my aversion, because I think she is deeply ignorant, unkind, and not acting beautifully, then is it correct to say that I have very bad karma, a very bad karmic connection with that person? Many times I do think that without this person in my life, I will definitely feel much more peaceful. And if she disappears, that would be a blessing for everyone around her. Let's annihilate her, destroy her. Sounds like Vipawadana to me, you know, wanting to get rid of, wanting to destroy something that we're not happy with, not comfortable with, not peaceful with. So, yes, one karma is that you meet with people who you don't get on with, don't like, maybe even they cause you some suffering. You have to meet with them. This is partly past karma coming back, isn't it? Maybe we've been difficult in the past to other people, and this has come back to us in the form of this person that we're living with, working with, related to. You know, I'm the owner of my karma, I'm supported by my karma, I'm related to my karma. A lot of karma is to do with relationships. What we've done and said to people in the past, it comes back to us, some good, some bad. It's part of life, isn't it? Once you practice the Dhamma, you stop expecting to like everyone in this world, because we're all different. We have different characters, different likes and tastes and different personalities. What you're aiming for is to try to live peacefully with the people of the world, but you don't expect to like them all. And if, say, you have someone in your family or your workplace who's always causing you trouble, well, this is probably some old karma coming back, but the important thing is, how are you going to deal with it now, currently? Like you say, if they're stimulating aversion arising in you, that aversion arising is your responsibility. You have to deal with that. Even though that person may be difficult, troublesome, in whatever way, The aversion is your reaction, your thought, your emotion. And there's a cut-off. There's the seeing, the hearing, the relating to that person on the outside, but then what's going on the inside in you is your field of practice. On the outside, we try to keep the precepts, so even if we are getting angry, we try not to display it in our speech, our actions towards that person. Try to treat them fairly. We try to maintain mindfulness in what you say, what you do, speak with kindness, act with kindness to them, be patient with them. If you can avoid them, well, sometimes that's the best solution, at least temporarily, but you can't always avoid people who you live with or work with. But the important thing is what's going on the inside, and that's your job, your practice, not theirs. If you're going outwards and saying, I've got to get rid of this person from my life, then I'll be happy, you're missing the point, because that aversion is arising internally. What tends to happen is if you're successful in destroying, getting rid of that person in one way or another, swatting them like a fly, sending a missile in to destroy them, whatever, that's not getting rid of your anger, it's probably intensifying it, it's reinforcing it, and then it will just migrate onto a new person or a new situation. Or sometimes it will come back on yourself. So one karma is if you've been angry with someone else, even if they behave badly, that anger leads you to act in unskillful ways. Maybe you hurt, harm them, try to get them away, get them out of your life. What do you end up with? You end up with regret, don't you? You feel sorry or bad about what you did. Usually, once your mind becomes more mindful, it improves, you'll feel regret about what you said and done. So that's not the solution to the problem. Hurting them, destroying them, making them disappear. In certain situations, you just have to separate from someone who's too difficult. It's true. But generally speaking, which I think you're referring to a more general situation, well, you have to work on your own anger. Rather than focusing on them, focus on yourself. How can I manage my own anger? How can I find peace within this situation? Have enough mindfulness to see the anger as it's arising, acknowledge it and let it go. So we work on our own practice, developing loving kindness, tolerance, patience, focusing on the good in ourselves, focusing on the good in that person if it helps. Try and see the good in them even if there's a lot of bad in them. Try and see the good in them to balance your thinking. And work on ways to prevent your anger arising, or have strategies that when it does arise, how will you let it go? It can be a meditation that you do when you're getting angry or you've been angry during the day, then you go off when you've got free time to sit down, meditate, and really work on your mood. And monks will do this. They get angry with somebody and they see the real danger is not the person, it's their own anger. So off they go and they walk meditation until they've completely eradicated that angry mood, angry train of thought from their mind. They've got to work on it. What can they do? And how can you establish a mind of metta, the opposite of aversion? It's like a challenge, a task you set yourself. And sometimes we use wisdom teachings, reflect on it. Sometimes we just use pure mindfulness and patience and endurance and effort. But you find a way to abandon this anger. Sometimes more indirect teachings work. You reflect, if I'm holding on to this angry thought all the time towards this person, if I was to die, I will die angry. I don't want to die angry and be born in a realm of some kind of angry ghost somewhere. So I don't know when I'm going to die, so therefore I've got to be on my guard not to fall into anger or to abandon my anger as soon as it arises, because I don't want it bothering my mind all the time. You have to find whatever reflection works for you to help you abandon it and replace it with more tolerant, kind thoughts. But it's not that you're trying to like the person. If they are generally, for you, they're generally dislikable as a person, you have to accept that. But what you are letting go of is your aversion. So if you have a meditation practice, maybe mindfulness of breathing that you do regularly, at first maybe just forget all about that person. Go off, do your meditation, become really peaceful. And when you're really peaceful, then turn your mind to think of them. And you'll start to see the suffering of anger, the feelings, the emotions, the thoughts. If you've been very peaceful, that becomes very clear. Then you're motivated to want to let it go and not have it return to your mind, because you see it's a blemish. All mental defilements, greed, anger, delusion, they blemish the mind, they darken the mind, they generate agitation, mental agitation, proliferation. It's the opposite of clarity, peace, awareness, all the good things. It's the opposite of that. So if you can generate a state of stillness, peace, sometimes, then you go back and you reflect on your defilements and the origin of your defilements. You realize, this is something I've really got to let go of. When we're not very mindful, we tend to get lost in the reasons why we're angry, and we just keep thinking, I'm angry because they're bad, they did this, they did that, they're wrong, I don't like them. And it's like endless. You never really get out of that. And often it gets worse. It becomes like reinforced. So any meditation that you can do that helps you to find some peace, that's one way you can progress. You achieve your state of peace over here, and then you reflect back over there on this problem, and you realize, this problem is self-created, it's aversion, it's suffering. Then you're more willing to let it go rather than keep feeding the anger with the reasons why I'm angry and the logic of it and all the arguments behind why you're angry. And, you always think you're right when you're angry and that there's some injustice or there's some reason that you should be angry. But all of that is just delusion and sense of self feeding itself. And I'm not saying you're ignoring the fact that that person may behave badly or try and do things that hurt you. But here we're talking on a very deep level where you're just recognizing that anger itself is suffering and it should be abandoned. So try and see this person as your teacher. Give them the name Ajahn, whoever it is. I don't know if it's a lady, you call her a she, so she is Ajahn, whatever her name is. She's your teacher. She's teaching you to be mindful, teaching you to let go, teaching you to have metta, tolerance, patience, teaching you to be with the Dhamma rather than the mental defilements. So maybe this person is actually helping you get enlightened. So that's the end of the questions today. We wish you well again for the new year, and may the blessings of Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha guide you and protect you.